All right, 6:46. So we'll start the July 6th meeting, Personnel and Finance. We'll start with just kind of a introduction roll call of who's present. Dave Pritchett, Committee Chair.
Tad Erickson, Alderman at Large.
Kevin Stunek, Alderman at Large.
Jennifer Bergman, City Administrator.
Connie Hillman, City Finance Director.
Marky McQuiston, Police Chief.
Chris Schubert.
Tim Holmes, Brainerd Fire Department.
And is the dispatch calling user too? Is that Teresa?
Yes, I am.
All right. Is there anybody that we missed?
Strong IT.
All right. All right, so we've got 8 items on the agenda. First item would be the approval of bills and transfer of funds. So, Connie?
So there is really nothing to note in the bills. On the Safety and Public Works, there is a change order item, and it says that it's subject to payment of bills, but that payment was not on the bills, so we can ignore that. So there's not that. But Safety and Public Works, it was not paid on the bills. You can see a couple of 2019 year-end transfers. The one is that we were under budget as far as the working funds go, and so we're transferring $133,000 to the capital fund. We did change our fund balance policy this winter sometime, and one of the questions was, how would that have changed? And if we were under the new fund balance policy, we would not be transferring the $133,000. We would have been 41% for our fund balance policy, but we wouldn't have transferred any funds to capital.
Okay.
Okay, all that said, I'll make a motion to accept the bills.
Second, Erickson.
We have a motion by Stunek and a second by Erickson. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, goes to vote. This is roll call.
Stunek,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes, and that passes, and that takes us to item number 2, which is the discussion of the Lakes Area Media Collaborative. John and Jennifer.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. I think maybe I'll kick us off, and Sean's probably going to be able to fill in a bit more, especially from the historical perspective. So council chambers actually will be ready to host meetings. We actually thought it would be ready tonight. The carpet is in, walls have been painted. However, we're waiting for that audio system to be reinstalled along with our new videos. We have an agreement or an understanding between us and Lakes Area Media Collaborative to get the franchise fees. And they were tasked with purchasing our new cameras and then for hiring a contractor to install those new cameras. It's been rather frustrating trying to coordinate this with Lakes Area Media Collaborative. So Digital Horizons was who they had hired to complete the installation, but they're unable to move forward with it until they have all the equipment that they need. And right now, Digital Horizons is pretty booked out. So we weren't able to meet the deadline to tonight. We have asked them to have everything installed and ready to go by the July 20th meeting. At this point, we just don't have a lot of faith that that's going to get done. So I guess with that, Sean, I'll kick it over to you. That kind of sets the stage, and maybe you can give a little more background.
Sure, I can try. There's a lot of background. It's been, I would say, quite a few years of not getting much done, as you've known from cable TV, people trying to watch streams that haven't been going out and things like that. So we've been trying to get equipment in here. I remember emails back in October to try to get stuff here, and now it's July. We're looking at 10 months, 11 months, whatever that is now, where we just can't get anything done. So what we're trying to find out is what the council's desires are, what we should be trying to get done, if we're barking up the right tree here, or if it's time to make changes or put feelers out there to see what even could be changed. I guess we're just looking for general direction of what the council would like to see accomplished with getting meetings, broadcast, streamed, like recorded, etc.
And so maybe, Connie, you can share, I think we provide Lakes Area Media Collaborative with about $66,000 annually out of our franchise fee. And with that, part of the agreement is that Lakes Area Media Collaborative is going to be assisting with getting these council meetings broadcast on cable. It is a cable franchise fee. I know there's been discussion in the past about, cable versus streaming. The franchise fee is specific to cable subscribers. That of course continues to go down. So really, I think there's a couple of things that we would like to discuss or have some discussion on. Number one, what do we do if Lakes Area Media Collaborative does not have something done by the July 20th meeting? We have not provided Lakes Area Media Collaborative with their, and Connie, correct me if I'm wrong, their 2019 franchise fee, their 2020.
So we have not paid the payment for 2020, which is based on the 2019 collections. So it's kind of both, but we haven't made the payment yet.
And John, I think, has probably literally been trying to coordinate the cameras in City Hall, in council chambers, at least 3 months, probably closer to 6. Is that a fair statement, John?
Fair, yep.
So we continue to try to get this done, and that really is the one thing that's going to prevent us from getting back into council chambers to have in-person meetings. Also wants these to be live streamed either via cable or via internet. So I think we're kind of looking for a little bit of direction on if they're not installed by the 20th of July, where do we go from there with Lakes Area Media Collaborative in regards to getting cameras installed? And then I think the other part of this discussion is going to be after cameras are installed, where do we go moving forward? Sean, it looks like you're muted, so maybe you have more.
No, that's about it. I'm ready to field questions. Looks like Pritchett might have.
Yeah, I've got 2 questions because like when we talked about this agenda item, one, even if we were to broadcast on cable, there's an increased cost with that, correct?
At this point, our cable channels have been deactivated, canceled. I don't know what the right term is. They're gone. They don't exist anymore. It's 180 days plus to get them back up and going. There's also no physical place to broadcast from. So there's a huge amount of time and money that would take to get a cable channel back up. And it doesn't sound to me that Charter's interested in a cable channel that only has 4 or 5 hours of content a month.
Right.
They want serious content before they want to spin up a channel, and nobody's making any original local content to broadcast that I'm aware of anyway.
And so second, since we haven't paid 2020, if we were to cut ties, we're not losing any money. It's not like we've already given them the money and we're expecting equipment and then.
Correct. Yeah, it sounds about right.
And maybe I'll clarify a little bit too, as I understand from talking to Sean this morning. The Lakes Area Media Collaborative was going to purchase 3 cameras. They have purchased 2, right, Sean? And we have them.
I've heard the other one is ordered now, which of course isn't going to be installed on the 20th. We had the original back in May or June. We said July 6th was a hard deadline. That came and went, and now we've had July 20th as a hard deadline, and that will probably come and go. And that's why we're here tonight, is to try to figure out how far we're going to take this.
Sean, what are the reasons they're giving you for not producing the product that we wanted?
There usually aren't any.
Well, I don't have a lot of patience. If we haven't paid them any money, I'd be willing to just say, put the hammer down and say, okay, here's the deal, or we'll go elsewhere. Because the history is there that we haven't been happy in the past. Why keep fooling around?
Agreed.
Real quickly, do we have any legal obligation since they've already purchased those 2 cameras? Or can we pay for those 2? Would those be the cameras we wanted? If they're saying, you need to pay for the 2 cameras that we already have, would that be an acceptable?
Right. It's probably not what we would have bought had we had the choice, but that would be an option to pursue That's when it dabbles into the legal questions that we'd have for Joe at some point of,
Okay.
I've heard there's an agreement. I've never seen it in the 14 years that I've looked for it. It really looks like this was all decided through a motion in 2005-ish, I think. So it's just
Okay.
been an ongoing thing for about 15 years now. I've never seen a written agreement that spells out how any of this, what's actually going to be delivered, how to terminate, how to continue, I've never seen anything like that.
All right.
I'm sure that it does exist. Go ahead.
Councilman Stunek?
Well, there again, we're talking 15 years of not happiness. If they can't come up with a written agreement on or whatever, in my personal way, I don't really care about their cameras, because if we have to purchase the cameras and the new company we get doesn't like the cameras, we're out. That's their gig, not ours. I'd say shut the door and lock it and go somewhere else.
Right. And just to clarify, what I'm saying is, talking about the agreement, do they have any sort of legal recourse, if we say? Because I just assumed my motion would be to direct staff to basically look into to see if there's an agreement, and simultaneously look at getting us cameras so we can at least live stream on the internet and I don't know if I'd say as soon as possible, because I don't know if Sean has an idea of what kind of cameras and how the installation would go. I don't want to do a rush job and do it wrong, but I'd want to have that up as soon as possible, done well, if that makes sense.
Right. Kevin?
If I can, Dave, Sean, do you have any words of wisdom as another vendor we could use?
No, I really don't have any idea who else would do something like this. Put it out for requests for proposals or quotes or whatever might be an option.
Mr. Chair.
Lakes Area Collaborative is not the vendor. The vendor was Digital Horizons, correct?
Okay.
No, Digital Horizons just people who install stuff for us. They're a great company, doing great work. They rewired City Hall for us. They've done a great job.
Oh,
Lakes Media.
so this Lakes Area Collaborative was ordering it from somebody else. They're still not the vendor.
They're the provider of the service, or always have been.
Okay.
They're supposed to be broadcasting meetings on the cable channel, yeah.
All right.
Mr. Chair, this is Tad.
Go ahead, Tab.
I agree with the approach that both of you have laid out. I think our patience has kind of run out at this point. Hearing from staff, a lot of frustration. Also sense the hesitancy on whether there was an agreement or not. So I like, Dave, what you said about let's make sure there is or isn't an agreement. Let's get some clarity on that. And then as soon as possible, I guess, get Joe involved and, if there is an agreement, or to look at the minutes and the motions to find out what our obligations to them are. My only other question is, I like the idea of getting on that as soon as possible. However, how was it presented to them about the 20th? And can we move forward? I feel like we kind of made that deadline of the 20th, and that now if we move forward before the 20th, is there any questions on that, or should we wait till after the 20th?
We could direct staff to move at, if we're not happy with that, with what's been done by the 20th. If they miss this deadline, staff can then, in the meantime, we can still look for the agreement, because it'd be nice to have that even if they installed everything.
Right.
I agree. I just didn't want to get into a situation, and I don't want to hold this up either, but I don't want to get in a situation where we start moving down this path and they said, oh, well, we were ready to go for the 20th, and it just creates some confusion. But I'm in agreement with what both of you said about moving forward with other options.
Mr. Stunek.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would tend to agree. If we've got the 20th as a benchmark, I think between now and the 20th, let's direct staff to get our ducks in a row in the event that if they either do come forward with the right equipment or they don't come forward, so we can pull the trigger to do whatever.
So what I'm hearing is to direct staff to look for the agreement with the Lakes Area Collaborative, regardless. And then if the July 20th deadline is not met, start looking at other places to purchase the equipment needed. Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, thank you. And maybe what we could do is come back, if the equipment is not installed, that maybe staff could come back on the 20th with a recommendation on how, or Sean, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, that should work.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Along those lines, I would say, make the motion whether they meet or don't meet that July 20th deadline, we revisit the agreement or whatever sort of arrangement. Revisit regardless.
So basically, direct staff to look for the agreement starting now. If that 20th deadline and have staff present the situation to council again at our next council meeting, our next regular meeting.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. That sound?
Yeah, I'll make that motion as stated.
Okay. Motion by Erickson,
I'll second it.
second by Stunek. Any discussion?
Just a question for staff, if that motion was clear enough, or if you need any.
It should be. I can play back the video in a little bit too.
And I think we, from this discussion, to kind of have some clear direction. So thank you for this discussion. We appreciate it.
All right. Okay, so then we need to vote by roll call.
Stunek,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes, and that passes. That takes us to item number 3, which is the resignation of paid on-call firefighter itself, and then we go to Fire Chief Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening. Firefighter Barry Sell has turned in a letter of resignation. He's been with the department since 2002. He just got to that point where he's moving on with different things in his life now, and has made the decision to resign. Barry's been extremely beneficial and valuable member of our department. He'll be greatly missed, and we're right now in the process of trying to find a replacement for his captain's position. We're working on that internally, and then also hopefully we will be able to get back to our paid on call testing process, hopefully at the end of the summer, to then again fill that vacant position in the department. So just a motion to accept with regret his letter of resignation.
Effective July 31st, correct?
Correct, yep.
I'll make that motion to accept with deep regret Officer Sell's resignation.
All right. Got a motion
And second, Erickson.
and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, goes to vote.
Stunek,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes, and that passes.
Thank you.
Item number 4, which would be the retirement of Officer Troy Trifles, and that'd be Police Chief McQuiston.
Mr. Chair. As you'll see included with the agenda request is Troy's retirement notice. Goes without saying, it's a huge loss for our department. Troy's been a significant part of the department's culture for over 20 years, and specifically in training. His involvement in the community is probably second to none in any police officer I've ever worked with. So we're really going to miss him. It's effective August 16th. As you'll see on the agenda request, we had the civil service meeting on July 1st. They did certify the top 3 names of a new eligibility list. We have conditional job offers out to all 3 of those candidates. So the staff is actively working on those background investigations as we speak, and we're going through the pre-employment screening process with those candidates. So the motion is just to accept Officer Trifles' retirement with regret.
All right.
And Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to accept Officer Trifles' resignation with regret, effective August 16th.
All right. Got a motion?
Second that.
Got a second? Any discussion? Any
I have
discussion?
a comment.
Oh, go ahead.
A lot of people don't know this, but Officer Trifles and I are short-tail cousins. You may not know that by looking at his giganticness and my littleness, but we are actually cousins. You can laugh, Corky.
All right. Any other discussion or distant relationships? Any other discussion? All right. Hearing none goes to a vote, and that's roll call.
Stunek,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes, and that passes. All right, that takes us to item number 5, which is the request to use drug forfeiture funds for a laptop computer. And back to you, Police Chief McCliskey.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. As you'll see, we currently have over $6,000 available to us in the drug forfeiture fund, with several other $1,000 pending in the court system. As the pandemic situation continues to stretch on, our department does have needs for additional computers that have built-in cameras and microphones, so that not only in training but other meetings, we tend to find a lot of the meetings that we would normally attend in person we're now doing via the web. And with the lieutenant's position and his role in crime prevention and his oversight of the investigators, this computer will really be put to good use. I think it's appropriate use of the drug forfeiture funds. And so we're asking you to approve us to utilize $1,037 of the existing funds available in our drug forfeiture account to pay for a laptop computer, the Microsoft Surface Laptop 3 that we've already got.
Make that motion to spend $1,037 out of the drug forfeiture funds to purchase the computer needed for the lieutenant's position.
And second, Erickson.
Have a motion, have a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, goes to a vote, and that's roll call.
Stunek,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes, and that passes.
Thank you.
Boy, we got a lot of resignations and retirements. That takes us to item number 6, which is the resignation of Seth Greenwald, Street Maintenance 1. So Human Resources Director Schubert, are you taking that one? I don't see.
Yes, I am.
All right.
Attached to the agenda request is a letter of resignation from Seth Greenwald. He is a Street Maintenance 1 employee who has been with us for about 9 months. He has been offered a position in a neighboring community, a promotion for him, so good for Seth. We're sad to see him go, but with that said, we're asking you to accept his resignation with his last working day being July 9th, and to authorize staff to start that process to backfill his position.
All right.
I will make the motion to accept Seth Greenwald's resignation effective July 9th and direct staff to begin the hiring process to fill his position.
And I will second that.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, goes to a vote, and this is roll call.
Stunek,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes, and that passes. All right, that takes us to item number 7, which is a memorandum of agreement between the city and LELS Local 65 to extend the appeals panel decision timeframe from 5 days to 6 weeks. Back to Human Resources Director Schubert.
So when we moved to performance-based pay a little over a year and a half ago, we included an appeals process in the union contracts for the employees that disagree with the result of their annual performance evaluation. The process established an appeals panel, and that the panel had to make a decision within 5 days. When we had our first appeals last year, the Bureau of Mediation Services had sent a mediator, and he had recommended that we extend that time frame from 5 days to a more realistic time frame, so that the panel had time to discuss this and provide proper documentation. So at this point, we're just finalizing or formalizing that appeals process for future appeals. We do have some appeals that will happen later this month, and this just makes it so that we're ready for that hearing.
All right. I just have one question. The change from 5 days to 6 weeks is, is that just how long it takes to get the paperwork and get the people together? I mean, that doesn't put anybody at a disadvantage or an advantage or anything like that, does it?
No, what we did is we didn't want to have to worry about coming back for another extension. So we made sure the time frame was long enough that there should be no problem getting everything finalized and done. So it just simplified our process. I think it maybe took 3 to 4 weeks last time to get their decision.
That makes sense. Okay. Any other questions? All right. So
Motion.
Oh,
You ready for the motion?
yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion for a memorandum of agreement between the city and LELS Local 65 to extend the appeals panel decision timeframe from 5 days to 6 weeks.
All right.
And second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, goes to a vote.
Stunek,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes, and that passes. And that takes us to item number 8, which is the recycling fund discussion. And that would be Finance Director Hillman.
All right. So we use the recycling fund to account for the money that we get from Crow Wing County for the SCORES funding, and also for the to account for the money that comes in and the expenses associated with our used oil facility, which is located at the fire department. In about 2015, we had to start paying for our for the recycling of the antifreeze and the oil filters. Prior to that, the fund had pretty much stayed level. Well, now this year, we didn't receive any SCORE fundings from the county, which have to, 100% of those funds have to go to the recyclers anyway. But what we're finding is the free will offering is not covering the costs of recycling the antifreeze and filters, as well as the dumpster that we also provide so people can dispose of their items. You know, the facility has continued to promote water quality and reduce the possibility of pollutants entering our water and from illegal dumping and spills. So we feel that the recycling center is a valid entity. We want to keep it going. The problem is that we're having is our fund balance was a positive, just about $1,000 at the end of 2019. The way we're tracking for 2020, we're going to use that fund balance. And so this is kind of just a discussion in preparation of the 2021 budget. We need to discuss how to fund the used oil facility. Some possible solutions besides levy dollars could be the storm sewer fund and possible contributions from BPU. You know, staff would need to talk to BPU. We have discussed with Paul when we're looking at, you know, we budgeted about $1,100 deficit. So if we continue that in future years, we're looking at maybe $600 between the two entities. How does council feel like that, or would they rather use levy dollars?
I have a question. So, go ahead, Mr. Erickson.
Yeah, really quick question. Connie, you mentioned at the end of 2019, the balance was just $1,000. So I think I know the answer to this. Is this more of an ongoing thing that balance is just, the contributions have not been, has it been an ongoing thing, or is this something like in light of COVID with less people driving, less oil being used, or is it more of an ongoing thing?
It's more of an ongoing thing. Once we've been budgeting deficits since 2015. And we've just kind of been using the fund balance. And so it's an ongoing thing. Usually we pay for the antifreeze and the filter can be anywhere between $50 and $100 a month. And then we also have the dumpster rental, which is about the $75, $80 a month. And we're just not getting the free will contributions.
Connie, I have a question. So we've already talked to BPU, correct? And if so, or we haven't yet. Do you have any? Either way, do you have any idea what their feelings would be? Whether they would agree?
From when we talked about it in 2015, when we were looking at this, they felt that they did not want to get rid of the used oil contributions or the used recycling facility. And so I don't think it would be an issue to have them fund part of the operations of it. But that was from our discussion with 2015. BPU, Mr. Magnuson and Mr. Wicklund were on vacation last week, so we were unable to have a discussion with them.
So then, just really quickly, if we did that, we'd be splitting it with BPU. So we'd be paying roughly $600. Isn't part of the question where those $600 would come from?
And I would say they would come from the storm sewer fund. And I have spoke with city engineer Paul Sandy, and he would agree that that would be worth contribution from the storm sewer fund as well.
All right. So it sounds like kind of the recommendation from staff might be to enter discussions with BPU to possibly split the overrun, the $1,078, and then anything that the city pays would come out of the storm sewer fund. Is that kind of what you're looking at?
Yes, that's what we're thinking. And just kind of want to get council's direction, council's ideas, if they think that would be a good idea as well.
That sounds like a good plan to me.
All right. Was that a motion?
Are you looking for motion?
If it needs to be, I can, but it's.
If you have questions, go ahead and ask questions. Otherwise, we can discuss it after there's a motion too, either way.
I'll make a motion that we enter into negotiations or discussions with BPU to split that cost, and then that the remaining cost, $600, would come out of the sewer fund, septic sewer fund.
Storm sewer.
Storm sewer.
That's what I meant.
Okay.
Thanks.
With all that said, I'll second it.
All right. We got a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, goes to a vote.
Stunek,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Pritchett.
Yes. And that passes. Anything else? All right. So this meeting is not, we'll adjourn the meeting and go to the next one.
Sounds good. See you in a few.
All righty.
All right.